Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this game, I'm going to show you a disguised Dutch defense against d4 when our opponent plays the best standard move. Again, we're disguising our Dutch. We're not opening with f5. We want this all to be hidden so we don't have to face anti-Dutch systems. And after c4, then the best move here is bishop to b4 check. And white's best option, not to play knight c3, allowing us to stack his pawns, and then play immediate f5, and then the game is already, the opening I should say, is already won for black if white decides to block with knight c3 here. So as you start to get up into this rating range, this game, the victory in this game got me up to 1723 in blitz. As you start to get up to this level, your opponent's going to start playing the best move here, which is bishop to d2. Now, two options. One is to just take the bishop, and the other, slightly less known, is to play a5 here. And what we're hoping now is that we're hoping that white will force us to take, which then creates, and this is how the game went, which then creates a decision-making process for white. White is supposed to take with the queen here. White is supposed to take with the queen, which is going to lend additional control to the b4 square. If white takes with the knight instead, then that'll end up feeding into our Dutch plan because his knight should be on c3 with assistance on the e4 square, and because of our pawn push to f5 and our knight push to f6, and as we so frequently do, fianchettoing the bishop, there is going to be a fight for this e4 square. We're going to see that play out. So my opponent correctly plays knight here. Now, one of the other great things about playing this a5 push, rather than just taking the bishop immediately, is that this a5 pawn is now helping us with control of the b4 square because there is no bishop at home to defend this rook. So after takes over here, we're going to be able to take the rook. So this a5 pawn preventing the b4 push for white, really helping us out big time. Now the engine says that I should do things like d5 and I should play knight f6, but we play the Dutch, so we are going to play f5 here. Knight coming out to c3, all standard Dutch stuff. Get castled. And as we so often like to do, as soon as we see that his bishop is not going to claim this diagonal, we move to claim this diagonal for ourselves. Every single time, you guys, that you're playing a Dutch and you see your opponent going e3, we want to be looking at fianchettoing our bishop to get control of this e4 square. Sometimes after e3, your opponent will even also just play bishop to e2, giving us that much more fight and control of the e4 square. So really good stuff here. Everything going according to plan. You can't see it, but I actually have started with 3 minutes on my clock, and I have 3 minutes and 3 seconds on my clock thanks to the 3-2 and the 2-second time delay that we're playing. So normal stuff. Now, I want you to pause the video if you're a Dutch player. Try to think of what black's best move is here. Okay, so we have two moves that are really good. One is to just go ahead and take the knight and open up that king side, and then eventually we may have some moves like queen over to e8, sliding over here, starting to gain some pressure on the king side. The other move that is typical of the Dutch, if you don't want to give away your light squared bishop so early, is to go ahead and play knight to e4 immediately. The reason being is that white players who know what to do against the Dutch are going to put their queen onto c2. And then they're going to have complete control of this e4 square from us. For now, we have the ability to fight for it. Now, I miss both of those moves, and I start playing my typical Dutch stuff with d6. Luckily for me, he slides the rook over first. He does not play queen to c2, and we're already at an even game. Now I find knight e4. One move too late, but one move too late isn't always that bad. Your opponent is not always going to play the absolute best move against you. Go ahead and get the knight to the e4 square. And I want you to pause the video and see if white can take this knight, and if white can take this knight, which piece he should take it with. Now white's queen is under attack from our knight, so white ought to do something. Potentially white can just not take and just play the queen over to c2. Potentially white can take with the bishop or the knight. And then of course there's some other moves available too. There's other places that he can put the queen, certainly. Okay, so if you decided that taking the knight with the bishop was the way to go, thinking that this pawn is going to come in here and take, and then you can just move the knight out of the way and everything's hunky-dory, that is incorrect. That is incorrect because the knight has nowhere to go and it's trapped. Can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. And these two squares are eaten up by the queen, who has not yet moved to e8, as she so often does. So the best that maybe she could hope for is to triple our pawns. And so this game is over and it ends pretty quickly after this. But just wanted to show you guys that that order of events, this really essential a5 take, going into our Dutch setup. As soon as we see e3 playing b6, and knowing that now is the time to play knight e4, not when the queen is over on c2. And that is also one of the beauties of this system when we do have earlier in the game our bishop over here on b4 in that check position, and white decides to block with the bishop, which is correct, and then forces us to take, which is correct, and then retakes with the queen, which is also correct. White does everything that they're supposed to do in this sequence until later when they should play queen to c2. And as a result of doing everything that they're supposed to do, they still don't have their queen on her optimal square against the Dutch setup, against the Dutch system, which is c2. So that's what I love about this system, is it's so beautiful. When your opponent opens up with d4 and we open up with e6, making it look like we're going to play a French system with d5 and c5, and instead we're coming out with the bishop. This is taking everyone out of their books. This is a victory against an opponent rated 1832, and they blunder a knight to me because people just aren't studying the Dutch defense. I would really recommend watching my other videos on the disguised Dutch. There's going to be repetition. I'm going to be seeking to get these same structures in all the games, but it's good to see the repetition and keep getting it enforced in your head. My winning percentage when I'm disguising my Dutch, I think now is up to 63%. And my filters on my blitz games are that I will fight anybody up to 50 rating points lower than myself, but I'll fight anybody up to 200 points higher than myself. So the range of opponents that I'm playing, 80% of the time are rated above me. And I'm still winning 62 to 63% of my games, disguising my Dutch defense with the black pieces against higher rated opponents. So I can't tell you guys enough how much I absolutely love the system. To really learn the ins and outs of classical Dutch systems and a little bit of what I play, please go to Google Play and check out Simon Williams' book, The Killer Dutch. You can just read it on your web browser, no paper copies. I think it's like $10 or something. Really great jewels in there as he breaks down different pawn formations in the center. When white plays e4, when you want to take versus when you just want to play f4 and ignore it. Things like that. As your opponents get further and further in and they stop blundering this opening and early middle game and they start playing better against you, you'll need to be ready for some of those pawn pushes. My videos are starting to cover those, but here I am playing against an 1832 and already on move 11, I think it was, his 12th move. Already on move 12, he's completely blundered the game and it's over at this point. So he decides to take, and we're here. We just get pieces off the board. This stuff is all pretty easy. Here's where he really messed up, and I get to keep my bishop, and it's just game over at this point. He's going to try some tricky stuff here. I want you guys to think about, so white has just played queen d4, and this could be, I could put this in a series, closing out the game, where you're not the starting pitcher anymore, now you're the closer that has to come on and save the game for your team. Your team is up by 4 or 5 runs. How do you put your opponent away? So go ahead and pause the video, try to think about what black's best move is here. I did find this move in the game. It took me 17 seconds to find it. Okay, so if you pause and go ahead and do it, it is queen to g5. Now white's obvious threat here is that white wants to slide the queen over. Let me backtrack. We have to ask ourselves why white would play this move in the first place. And so we see that our king is completely open on this diagonal, right? So white wants access to this diagonal. So he decides to do it, because he's 1800, he decides to do it in the sneakiest way possible. Just slides the queen up to d4 with the intention of then playing c4 check and picking up my bishop. Now, the reason that queen to g5 is so good is, number one, it threatens mate in one, but also now, and my opponent plays his next move almost instantly. He plays that queen to c4 check that we see, but now my queen is reinforcing this d5 square, chasing the queen away, and she only has one square that she can go to so that she can prevent mate in one. So now our advantage is absolutely huge, and he'll try to do some other stuff. And now he resigns here because he's not going to be able to keep the rook. A little bit about this ending sequence, so you can understand what I'm doing. I'm running this pawn up the board, this H pawn up the board. My plan is to just get it up here, soften up that king side, so that I can drive the bishop into here, and then just create as many weaknesses as I can. Now the threat here with bishop is that bishop will take this pawn, and he can't take the pawn back because his king would be in check. So this forces a king move. Now, as the king moves away from g1, there's only one piece now defending g2. So I'm going to start to pile up on g2. So it's just little by little, just figuring out where the weaknesses are as I start to move my pieces around. Every move that I have here, I'm just trying to attack a new weakness in his camp. And here, this one worked out for me because he gets a little overzealous, sees that he has an attack on my queen, and I can simply slide it out of the way because now it's pinned to the king. So that's a great way to close out a game. My opponent resigns at that point. I guess the game could have continued something like this. Queen is putting pressure over here, and then after takes, I've got a little bit of work to do here, and I have to find some other moves. But it didn't come to that. My opponent resigned, as he should in this situation. And hope you guys got a lot out of this video. Really are starting to disguise your Dutch defenses. That's my whole goal of this series, is to get you guys to stop playing f5 on your first move, play e6 instead, go into your Dutch system, surprise your opponent later. You'll get them. You'll have a nice winning percentage like I do if you follow these videos, and you'll do great. Your rating will go up, and you'll be super happy, and everybody will love you. I think you're the greatest chess player in the whole family. So have a good one, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.